Yes, guys, welcome back to episode 3 of Lilywhite Lounge. Today is a necessary one. Um, I've been saying it feels a bit like a therapy session. I'm joined by the best co-host, back from episode 1. We had a little low-profile second co-host. Now we're back to the high-profile guy. Um, Welcome back, Gus. How you doing today?
Could be better. It's been an interesting week, an interesting day. Um, I really enjoyed your episode with AJ. It was a great chat. You guys just casual kind of banter, talking about everything Spurs, Burnley. I really enjoyed that episode. Now back to kind of reality of the doom and gloom of Tottenham. It's been an interesting day. How are you?
Yeah, so I think let's get it out there. Spurs is still for Eze has been hijacked by not just any club, by Arsenal. Um, yeah, it feels like I've been here before, and I don't know why, because I don't know, has this ever happened? I don't know if Arsenal ever hijacked one of our transfers. Maybe I think we were close to signing Saliba at a point, which is probably a worse hijack, but it wasn't as advanced as this. Um, yeah, I think it feels difficult because we all accepted and not came round, started to prepare for Eze being a Tottenham player. Um, and while I've said from the start I had my concerns around him, there was no way I was ever against Eze. There was no way I didn't want him to come. I was very excited for him to come. Um, but I think I think the drama is a little bit out of hand. But yeah, where were you let's start with where were you when you found out about this?
I
How
was
did you
sitting at
find out?
my I was sitting at my desk at work. A lot of this transfer news, a lot of our stuff that goes on is while I'm at my desk at work, trying to multitask, trying not to get in trouble with my boss. Um, I had to take a breather when that dropped. I took a 15-minute outside, started responding to some people on Twitter, just trying to scan the news, see what was going on. This week has been a whirlwind of ITKs, of different reporters saying that it's nearly done, it's edging, it's advancing. They could have used every word in the dictionary by now. Who knows? It's been 5 years coming, 6 years coming since he's been at QPR. So I think a lot of our fans, I said on Twitter, he's kind of our teacher's pet. He could do no wrong except for joining the scum. Like he could have went anywhere else, and we kind of would have, it would have hurt, but we would have moved on quicker. I think this one's going to hurt, and I want to validate a lot of the fans' anger. I think that we can cope all we want. We can kind of move on to different targets, but the anger and the frustration of this week in this window, I think, is warranted. Um, when I found out, anger was my first response. I'm kind of going through the 7 stages of grief, bargaining a little bit, uh, mentioning other targets and saying that they're better, which we'll get into. And I can make a case for Akliouche being a good option, maybe a better option, but definitely a good option. Yeah, when I found out, I was hurt. I texted in my group chat with one Arsenal fan, one United fan, and one West Ham fan, which we can kind of ignore. Um, and I was getting clowned right away. So a little bit hurt, a little bit protective of kind of my own emotions and where I am at mentally. But we'll survive. We'll figure it out. I think that this therapy session is needed. I know that you jumped on Spaces on Twitter. We were talking before we jumped into this that you needed a breather outside. How'd you find out? Where were you? What was your initial reaction?
Yeah, I was actually about to make a non-Spurs related video for my other channel, um, about a Brazilian youngster that I've started watching. So nothing. I was very much out the Spurs headspace, and then I think my friend texted me saying, oh my God," like an Arsenal fan friend, and then yeah. The thing is, it feels like I'm so numb to this kind of thing now that like I don't see the point in letting it ruin my whole day. I'm one thing I want to say is I think whether or not this is on Levy, I think he's got that big of an ego that for this and the Morgan Gibbs White deal to both happen in one window where he is made to look like a bit of an idiot, I don't think he'll let that go. And I think that he'll, not because he loves the club, whether or not he does love the club, not because he's the best chairman in the world, but because he's got such a big ego, I do think they will have to go big now because he doesn't want to be made to look like an idiot. And like we all know that about him. He never lets like other chairman or walk all over him. He'll be fuming about this. Not only because of it being negative for Spurs, but because now he knows that there's going to be a lot of pressure on him, and because I think he's got a massive ego. So I think that is one reassurance for everyone. Not because he's the best chairman, not because he loves the club, but because he's got a huge ego. I think he will respond. Second of all, anyone who follows me knows that from the start of this deal, I've never been 100% for it. Said this from the start of summer. I think we've obviously been linked for months and years. But I remember when Kudus got linked, I was bigger on Kudus than I was for Eze. And I'm not hiding the fact that I wanted him at Spurs, but I also had my reservations, and I think anyone who follows me knows that. So let's get into some of those reservations because we could talk about what a great player he is. I think obviously he's a fantastic dribbler. He's got real personality. He wants to take responsibility in the final third. He can create a lot. He can shoot well. He's quite multifaceted, but there are some non-fits there. I think one, he isn't a pass first player. And when I say pass first, I mean someone who, when they receive the ball, their first thought isn't to take 4, 5, 6, 7 touches, beating a couple men. It is touch, look up, or no, or not even touch, look up. Already have looked where their runners are, receive the ball and play, and create. The De Bruyne's, the Fabregases, the David Silvers, and obviously those guys could dribble at times as well, but they were proper playmakers, like players that know exactly where their runners are. They have a vision, a 360 vision. They're so intelligent, and so that for me, that's not Eze. And I think we need one of those players, whether that's a player in a deeper area or whether a player in an advanced area. We need one of those players, and I've been saying that from the start. So that is one kind of reassurance on this. Two reassurances is I think Frank wants someone who can drop into deeper areas and advanced play in certain situations. I think Eze could do that to a decent level. I think there's better players out there that can do that. And that's the second thing. And I think I think Arsenal paying 68 million. I think for me, that's an overpay. So I think those three things are, you can call it copium, which it probably partly is, but I think there are some bittersweet things. And this is not bittersweet until we get something else done. So if there's nothing done, then we're in a worse position, obviously.
It's just bitter.
Yeah, right now, of course, but I'm trying to find the positive.
Stay focused, right? We got 12 days left.
Yeah.
I know
No.
I know that fans have been very disillusioned by this window. There's been moments where we've looked like we're going to spend big and be very ambitious, and then we kind of go quiet back into the laying works in silence. And I think with Eze, I'm similar to you in that there's been moments where, over the past 5 years, where I've really wanted him, desperately wanted him. And as windows progress or as the squad changes, especially recently, under Ange, I wasn't sure quite what that fit was at left wing on the touchline. Now with Frank, like you said, we need a progressor that looks to pass first. I think a proactive passer who scans before he receives, ability to drop deep into areas that maybe Eze isn't the most comfortable. And I think there are some reservations there. That there is copium. He's a little bit older. That fee is pretty close to his release clause, which expired last week, which I think is very interesting from Arsenal. The purchase of him as Havertz goes down is kind of a question mark for me. I'm not sure what that fit is. Maybe he plays left wing, maybe he plays 10, but I think that the reservations are there, which makes me a little bit more optimistic about some alternatives. I think that there's always going to be discussions within our fan base because we're so seasoned and conditioned by this ownership to always expect an alternative that's cheaper or younger. And I think in this situation, the anger and the frustration right now is very bitter. Like we said, as soon as we figure out who our alternative is, I think it becomes bittersweet. But there is going to be a lot of convincing that needs to be done by some of the, big chunk of our fan base that the alternative is as good, as ready as Eze is.
Okay, I've got a couple questions for you. First of all,
Yep.
I think quickly on Arsenal, I think that Arteta is obsessed with Havertz, and I think he was going to play potentially Havertz off Gyökeres, I think, and Eze will now do that. So I think they'll play Odegaard slightly deeper. Eze will kind of hover around Gyökeres, run beyond him, drop him deeper than him. I think that's what they'll do, and I think that's probably what they were going to do with Havertz. On the age thing, how do you feel about, because there's a lot of kind of talk around the age and whether we need ready-made players, or other people say, why are we paying this much money for a 28-year-old when he's going to be declining in 2 years? So there's a big disparity between people's opinions on age profile. What's your kind of thoughts on that? And then also, what's your thoughts on kind of the Prem proven type narrative?
I think both narratives are tricky to argue for or against. I think that the age range that we're looking in, that 24 to 28 or 29 range, is what we expected going into this window, with a lot of the kind of the inside reporting saying that Frank, and even when Ange was still technically our manager, we're looking for more proven talent. So I think that's where
Which
a
we
lot
have
of the
done, by the way.
yes, Paulinho and Kudus, both Prem proven, both over the age of 25, both are hitting their prime. You could argue Paulinho is a little bit past his prime, but both are ready to go. Both are familiar with the league, familiar with the opponents. They know the physicality, the speed at which the processing is needed. I think that the Prem proven tag in certain scenarios, when you're looking for certain positions or at certain players, can be a little bit confusing, can be a little bit deceiving. For example, I think a lot of people in my mentions on Twitter, people that follow me, know that I love Maghnes Akliouche of Monaco.
Who we're
A lot
going
of
to get
people,
into, by the way.
yes, who we'll get into more in detail, but there's a lot of narratives that swirl around players that don't play, have never played in the Premier League, who play throughout Europe, that they are weaker, slower, they're going to process at a slower pace. It's going to take a while for them to hit the ground running. I don't necessarily think that I can fully disagree with that. I'm kind of in between. It really depends on the player. I think that I get frustrated when that's the only criticism that someone uses about a player. But I understand why our fans are craving that prem proven, hit the ground running player. There isn't much that I can really argue against, especially seeing our squad last year being so young and so unproven, with our first team players getting hurt and having to bring in backup options that have never played in this league or are 18 or 19. Yeah. So I understand. And I know that we still have some players that you could say aren't proven yet. So adding more players that maybe are a little older at a high price tag, that may take some time to get in to our system, to get running in the Premier League. I understand the hesitancy. I understand why some fans get a little disgruntled, get a little angry, get a little confused at why we're looking at those players.
So I think so I don't disagree with the Prem proven thing. I think it's obviously clear correlation between players that have played in the Premier League before, they're going to hit the ground running because they're used to the league or whatever. That's a more guaranteed hit of Premier League proven. Where I have an issue with Premier League proven is you pay premium prices in the Premier League. So for 60 million in the Premier League, it's unlikely if you spend that 60 million in another league, you're going to get the same quality of player. I've said that forever. I think if you're paying 60 million for a player from, let's say, France, that player is going to be very, very good. And if you're paying 60 million for a player in the Premier League, that player might be Elanga, that player might be Madueke, who are good players, but they're not incredible. And so I think that's a point. I think the other point is the age thing. I think age, like we've said in our first pod, age is not a predictor or a explainer of how ready someone is. Lamine Yamal is one of the best players in the world. He's 17. Um, N'Golo Kante was 25 playing in Ligue 2. There's age is not experience. Experience isn't age. So I think when you're looking at potential players coming in, let's not just say he's 20. We're buying the young option. Let's see. Okay, at what age did he break through? How many minutes has he got under his belt at senior level? How many games has he affected at his age? How many times has he kind of dominated games as a 10 or whatever? So I think that's a major point. But I also think there's argument for Premier League proven, and I understand also people want names they've heard of. I think that's the be all and end all. So they think foreign name that they haven't seen means not good player, and I think so many times people have been proven wrong by that. And you can't expect everyone to know every player. Like I'd say, we're nerds, like we're football nerds. So we know every player under the sun, and that's not going to be normal people. But I think trust that clubs do a lot of work into signing players, and they're not just going to go for a random nobody in 2025. That stuff doesn't really happen anymore. Just want to also update you that Eze is now here we go to Arsenal. So now we know, we can move on from that. So I think let's get into. So I think that's all. And I quickly also, just before we move on to the actual alternatives, I think the other thing I wanted to say was that me being okay with this deal not happening doesn't mean I love Levy. I don't love Levy. I don't think he's an amazing chairman. I think he's done an okay job. I think he's been good in some sense. I think he's been bad in other senses. I just find it incredibly boring to speak on something that I cannot change, that I'm not interested in. I've never been interested in like the ownership of clubs or the business side of football. I love football for the sport, for watching it, for enjoying players, for enjoying teams. I have no interest, and that's why I don't speak on Levy that often, because I find it boring and draining, and it's not really something that I can control. I don't feel like if I do anything, Levy's gonna walk out the door or Levy's gonna stay. So I don't try to avoid it. I avoid it because I find it boring. So that's why I don't. If people want to know why I don't tweet anti-Levy stuff and whatever, it's just not what I've ever been interested in. And I don't know how you feel about that, but yeah,
that's fair enough. I think I've been in modes where I've really hated Levy and the ownership. I've gone through long periods of time after Windows, before Windows, where I understand why Levy out narratives get a lot of traction and are very popular. I also find it a little boring. I think that there's moments where I'm really angry and understand why people moan and groan. And I ended up liking or retweeting their posts. I think that that anger comes from a place of love for the club, comes from a place of ambition, whether a little misdirected or not. I think that for the most part, they mean well. I'm in the same boat as you when it comes to this specific deal. I don't want anyone to think that just because we're going to talk about alternatives and I'm going to rave about Akliouche and other targets, that Eze wasn't one of my favorite targets going into this window, or at least when Maddison went down. I think that Eze made a lot of sense for us. There's a lot of benefits to it, but now he's a gunner. We got the here we go. So he's dead to me. I have no interest in talking about him on my timeline, talking about him to my friends. especially my Arsenal friends. I will be coming up with slander names. I will be coming up with, I might even make some fail comps. Who knows?
I hope he has a terrible, terrible rest of his career. I
I mean, he's
really do.
playing tomorrow, and then
Yeah,
the medical is
I
Friday.
know, I know,
So that Hey Watch might be glorious. Who
I
knows?
know, I know.
I,
Or
I
else we'll
never I never root for anything bad for a player, but
have,
that's a really
yeah,
interesting situation that
yeah.
Arsenal has
That's what we
agreed
need to
to.
say. Yeah, yeah. Okay. I think just before, yeah, we move on to the alternatives, I think the issue that I have, and probably you have as well, is not that we missed out on Eze. I think it's the lack of direction with this window. It feels very scattergun. It feels like we're jumping from this thing to that thing. Doesn't feel processed, and that's my main concern with Levy and the board. I don't. It's not about missing out on Eze. It's not even about missing out on good Gibbs White, which I think was a bigger thing. I like Gibbs White would have been a way better fit than Eze, I think. So I'm more upset about that. But I think for me, it's the lack of process, the lack of direction. That's what I'm most frustrated with. Um, Saving it till late, saving big deals till late as well. Normally, at this point, you're getting the types of Palhinha deals over the line. You're not waiting to do big deals at the end of the window. So I think that's my main issue. But it's boring chat. Let's move on to some alternatives. So I'm going to give you the floor for. I think, to be honest, I think if I was going to bet on the next target the club pivot to, I reckon it will. I reckon it will be Akliouche or it will be Harvey Elliott, who I will speak on after. I think Harvey Elliott makes sense because homegrown. He's still at Liverpool. He clearly wants out. But I'll speak on him after. Let's start with Akliouche because I mean I've been aware of Akliouche for a while, but to be honest, I didn't start properly looking into him until I saw you tweet about him 3 times a day. Um, so and then I saw what you saw in terms of style and smoothness. So you speak on him. First speak on him as a player, and then speak on him as a fit.
Sounds good. First of all, Kish is right. People are probably annoyed about how much I tweet about him. During the season, I would tweet about him when he played. I didn't really do a lot of deep diving into his profile, his background, how he would fit in our squad, in our club. So I think that at the beginning of the window, when I made his 24-25 comp, everyone knew I loved him as a player and as a person. I think that he has personality about him. He's a silky footballer who is very cerebral. He sees that full picture before it kind of unravels in front of him, just like
Can
we
you
talked
can you
about.
explain what cerebral means? Because I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Cerebral, in my eyes, in a sports context, means that he's processing faster than other players. That he is a smart, intelligent, high IQ player
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
who is able to find space, create separation, not
yeah,
necessarily by that top end pace and power,
yeah,
but by tricky, kind of neat touches, body position.
yeah.
He knows where he's going to be or where he needs to be before he gets there. You see that a lot of the times when he's in transition. Um, in settled play, he's very tight and very neat in tight spaces. He can wiggle out 2, 3 players. He's good in a lot of different zones, which I can touch on more. His versatility and how he he's he's a 10. I mean, he played 10 for Monaco B. He played 10 in the academy. Right now, he's a right wing. He's tucked inside. He can play 8. He can play 10. Um, if you watch some of Monaco's games where they play 5 at the back, he would drop into a lot of deeper zones to progress. He wouldn't play necessarily box to box 8, but more of an advanced 8 where he would have to track back and put in a defensive shift. What caught my eye initially, and I always like to talk about when I fall in love with a player, what caught my eye. I caught him at the end of 23, 24, and he had some really strong performances in League One. And that's when I was starting to get into other leagues where I would just watch to watch. We were not, we were kind of petering out with
You're
Ange.
boring.
Like I think the last
Yeah,
10 games where
I
we
was
knew
the
what we
same.
were we knew what to expect. So I was starting to watch other leagues just to kind of stay entertained, and I caught some of Monaco's games towards the end of 2 seasons ago. And so going into this year, I know they have Ben Segur, they have some promising players. I was as a USMNT guy, as a US men's national guy, I was gonna follow Flo Balogun pretty closely. Obviously, he got hurt for most of the year, so that kind of went out the window. But I pivoted quickly to Akliouche, just because of the aesthetic that he plays with, the flair, the North African flair that he can play with, the silkiness of his movement. While he's not the fastest, his start and stop, his ability to accelerate past the player without necessarily top end speed caught my eye. And not to mention, he's creatively one of the best outlets in France. Key passes, progressive passes, shot creating actions, goal creating actions are all 99 percentile in League One. I can get into the numbers. I can get into the performances that you guys should peep if you want. But I'll stick with the Champions League games he played against opponents outside of League One, because I know our fans are very scarred by a certain League One midfielder that we bought for a lot of money, who I won't mention because I feel like everyone's mind initially goes to him.
Just let me interject. He's one of my favorite ever. Like I know there was very limited, but his best performances were some of the most enjoyment I've ever had watching Spurs. But
amazing.
Yeah. Carry on. Go on.
There's nothing wrong with some Tanguy love. I think that he was going to be our savior of our eyeballs. Let's just say that. Yeah, I think that he only had let's talk about Akliouche in terms of what you just mentioned about experience, because he's 23. He's turning 24 this year. He has about 5,000, let's say 5K, about League One minutes in his legs. He broke through not in 24, 25, 23, 24. So 2 seasons ago. He has 14 goals, 26 assists in those 2 seasons, just in League One.
Can I quickly just add?
Of course.
2 seasons ago, let's just kind of compare that to Premier League player. That is someone like Morgan Rogers. So obviously, I think 2 years in football is a long, long time. Obviously, Morgan Rogers is now one of the best 10s in the country. He broke into 2 seasons ago. So that's a similar sort of trajectory just in France. Carry on.
100%. Yeah, he's young, but he also has experience. This year, he really proved he could be that guy for Monaco. They relied on him a lot for a creative outlet, for him to drag them up the pitch. When he was playing just strictly right wing, a lot of the times the ball would funnel through his side to be able to get out of pressure. You can see that with some of his progressive passing and progressive carry numbers. This is something that I stress a lot online, that a lot of our 10 targets that we've looked at have been very balanced in that category. They've had 150 progressive carries, 150 progressive passes. And that, I think, is a profile that we need. I think pass first 10s are great. I think having a balance between that, where the profile maybe prefers to pass first when they're progressing and can develop into more of a progressive outlet that just passes first, could be what we're looking at with Akliouche, where we want to develop that within him. Not to mention he covers 2 positions, maybe 3, if we really need him to. With our 10s being hurt, I think it adds a lot of tactical flexibility, adds a lot of ball retention, creativity in our front 4 that maybe he struggles initially with the physicality and the sped up processing speed he needs to play with. But I think he comes good pretty quickly if we were to sign him, just because of some of the things I saw in the Champions League. Go ahead.
By the way, I'm a massive fan of him as well. But just for the sake of the pod, I'm gonna put not some criticism, some questions. So there's I think 3 points that I want to touch on. One, I think physicality. So he's definitely not slow. He's not quick either. and he's not strong. He's not. Yeah, he's quite skinny, I'd say,
Hmm.
um, but very very smooth. Let me be clear.
Hmm.
Second point is I think he is not in terms of aesthetics, but in terms of not end product. What am I trying to say? Like final action and zones they want to operate in. I see him as quite similar to Kulusevski. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, that's one. And Kulusevski's out to December, I think,
Hmm.
roughly. Um,
Roughly, yeah.
and third thing is if we are to go for Savinho, which
Hmm.
I still think is on, by the way. I know there's been very mixed reports.
I'm praying.
I think after the weekend, because obviously we've got City, which was very confusing, but I think
Hmm.
after the weekend that could still be on. That would potentially mean three left footers behind a striker.
Hmm.
So hit me with those. What would you say to all three of those things?
I think the criticism about his pace and power is warranted. I remember very early on in this summer, I was doing a little bit of a deeper dive when I made that 24-25 season comp. And I noticed that, yeah, he maybe doesn't have, I think the power aspect is more of a concern. The pace reminds me a little bit of Cole Palmer and a
Yeah,
little bit of Kulusevski, where they're not the fastest player in the world, they're not the quickest player in the world,
they're not slow,
but
but
that burst of pace isn't something to be concerned about. There's been a few moments that I've worried about his pace over maybe a longer distance, but when he needs to change gears and speed up, his start and stop is smooth but quick enough. I think the
yeah,
power aspect, I've noticed that he isn't necessarily as weak as he looks. I think that his frame and the wiriness of his body maybe puts some people off, but he's so creative in the way that he can create separation from a player that it may take a little bit of time to translate to the Premier League. Um, but it's not something I'm
can
concerned
I
about.
interject, because I think
Yeah.
that's such a good point that so much about beating players or creating separation or creating space on the ball is so much about your ability to recognize when to speed up, when to slow down, your ability to feint and throw a defender off. Um, it's so much because it's clear, and obviously everyone knows this, but let's look at Brennan Johnson, who's very quick. Look at Ryan Shirky, who's moved to City, not the quickest. Shirky will beat a man 25 times more likely than Brennan Johnson. And that's where, and I'm very tall, I'm very slow, um, very weak in football, but I've played the last two seasons of my life on the left wing, and I'm six, nearly 6'6". I'm skinny.
We should
Um,
just buy you.
exactly. But that's what I mean. People still back me to play there because I know how to beat a man and throw a man off, and I think that I've always understood that. So I think pace and
Mhm.
power, and I've never been a pace and power person over technical ability. That's just the way
Mhm.
I view football.
Mhm.
But I think that's a great point.
Pace and
Um,
power. Let me just jump in for a second. Pace and power is always going to be something that people are concerned about for players outside the Premier League, right? That's the first thing they look at. Technical ability almost sometimes gets thrown out the window for pace and power when we're looking at players outside the Premier League, at least for our fans. I'm not sure how other fan bases
yeah, but
look.
I would say like without pace and power, your technical ability needs to be top. But if you have that top technical ability, then pace and power doesn't matter. Obviously, it's ideal, but you don't. David Silva's, Fabregas's, Ericsson's, Juan Mata's, no pace and power needed because they're that good IQ wise and they're that good technically. So I think you have to definitely be of a certain level. And I actually want to pivot this to Harvey Elliott in a second because it
Mhm.
actually applies. But yeah, I think you're right. Pace and power it can carry you really well. But if you're that good technically, um, it can be covered. And do you think Akliouche is good enough technically for his pace and power concerns to not matter?
I do. I do. I think a lot of people think that He is very one-footed. I disagree. I think he has a pretty good weak foot. In central areas, I think that he uses angles really well. He has an ability to shift onto his right to find a different angle. He prefers his left, obviously. He's very good in tight spaces when he's surrounded by multiple people. That's why I like him in central areas. I think that he can find multiple angles at the top of the box. There are a few maybe a few concerns about how quick his feet are if he's running at a defender. His step overs and some of his feints maybe aren't as effective as someone like Kudus or someone with that really, really quick burst. But technically, his first touch is really good. The one concern I have some concerns. I want to be somewhat objective with him. Obviously, I have a tremendous love for him. His ball striking is a little worrying. I think that his ball striking can be really inconsistent from range. He likes to try to place his shots instead of lace them. But I have some optimism that that's improved this summer. I think that I've seen him this preseason. I've tried to catch most of his preseason games, and he's been really, really good, really strong with those strikes. I think that his back lift has got a little bit quicker, and he's a little bit more willing to lace a shot instead of try to place it. So I think that technical ability is what caught my eye initially, and he has the flair and the IQ combined with the first touch and the ability to wriggle around defenders and find space. That technical ability is good enough at a high enough level where maybe that pace and power isn't as impactful for how well he hits the ground running.
Yeah,
But
I think
I'm interested to hear what you think about Harvey Elliott, because I've had some.
So I think for me also, like you've kind of sold me on Akliouche, but that's because I'm an enjoyer of technical, beautiful footballers, and I always will be. Like that's just who I am and what I enjoy. Um, I do think in terms of Frank, there are some concerns because of how big he is on transitions and physicality and athleticism. I think he recognizes though that technical ability is important. I think we've seen that in the targets that we've gone for. But I think I think his ideal 10 is Morgan Gibbs-White. Unfortunately, I think someone that can drop deep and be really explosive at carrying the ball into the final third and then being a real presence in the final third in terms of shooting, creating, kind of an all action 10. I think that's what he wants. Like you said, the person that can have the carry and the pass numbers. I think Gibbs-White was that, and I don't think Eze was that. I think Gibbs-White is certainly more that. And so I think the club will bring forward targets, and I don't think Frank will love them, but I don't think we really have a choice. So I think at this point, if it wasn't Akliouche, I think my most likely bet on who it will be is Harvey Elliott. And I think there is some kind of concerns around homegrown, I think. So we need extra English players for the registration stuff. This is another like Levy thing. I've never I should, because I'm like an analysis accountant and whatever. I should know this stuff, but I find it so insanely boring that I just have never bothered to learn it. Same way I've never really bothered to learn about the structure of the owners and all that kind of thing.
Oh, same.
I just find it boring. So, but there is some kind of concern around the homegrown stuff. So I think Harvey Elliott, English, homegrown, available, which for probably not a cut price, but a decent price because he wants out and Liverpool, I think, want to sell him. Sounds like a Levy deal. Premier League proven, which they're clearly massive on this summer. And so with Harvey Elliott, I want to highlight my concerns. Like you said Akliouche is both can progress carrying, but can also progress with passes. I think Harvey Elliott at this top level is only really able to progress with passes. I think he really lacks athleticism. I think when you say there's some pace and power concerns with Akliouche, they're nowhere near the concerns with Harvey Elliott. So that is certain. So I think Akliouche, some of those pace and power concerns could be fine in most games. Maybe there'll be some small concerns. With Harvey Elliott, I think you'd have to really be careful about how you use him and what games you use him in. So I think what we know is that Frank at times wants his 10 to drop deep and help carry the ball forward. I don't think Harvey Elliott can do that. I think Harvey Elliott can collect it from deep areas, but he's then going to struggle to have the athleticism to either carry it into the final third and have that power, that that Morgan Gibbs White-esque run from deeper areas into the final third, or he's going to play it off and the attack's going to kind of run and he's not really going to be able to keep up with it if it's a very transitional attack. So, if he's dropped deep into centre midfield, flings the ball out to Kudus and Kudus is running down the line, Harvey Elliott's not going to have the athleticism to keep up and then get on the end of something or receive it back and turn out and play the other side or whatever. So I think that's a concern. Where Harvey Elliott will be really useful is low blocks. I think he's brilliant at. He's the kind of player that picks a pass through the tightest of tight angles. Really like good imagination to like dink little passes over and a great strike on him as well, which is massive for low blocks. But it feels like a signing that would be very specific for very specific situations and not a player that you can play week in, week out, which maybe is okay at this point, because Kulusevski profiles pretty well in that. Kudus can play there as well. It definitely won't be enough just to sign Harvey Elliott. We need another attacker, especially if we're going to have Kudus at times playing that 10 in those more transitional games. Then you want another winger because I'm not watching Brendan Johnson as a starter again for another year. As much as I love him, I can't. So I think that would be the thing with Harvey Elliott. So I think those two are probably the most likely. The other kind of more dreamy targets are Xavi Simons, Nico Paz. Who was the other one I said? Was it just those? Yeah, it was just those two. I think they're more pipe dreams, but both of them are admired as superior players to Eze and higher ceilings than Eze. Maybe not Paz yet in terms of floor, but definitely higher ceiling. I don't even know if I want to talk on them because I don't know if there's a point. So let's just leave them. The last one I think I want to touch on quickly is El Canus, who I've been a massive fan of. I think he's certainly more of a pass first, and probably doesn't have the carrying ability of someone like Akliouche in the same way because he's weak. But his technical ability is that good that I just can't help but like think he'd be amazing. And he's such a good passer. The technique on one of my favorite players to ever watch was Thiago at Liverpool and Bayern.
Oh,
The way he
unbelievable.
strikes the ball and like cuts across it, and like those passes which just hover over the ground like so crisp. That is what I think El Canus has in his locker. So yeah,
I like the Thiago comparison.
in terms of how he strikes the ball, I've said that, and because I watched him live. He was I was just in awe of him. Like I was just like, this guy is. And to be fair, we were awful, so I was very bored that day, and I was kind of losing my mind, because the fan base were going crazy around me. Like we're so shit. Like, and I'd kind of I was past that point. And I was just like funny at that point. Not funny, but I was just like, I don't care anymore. I just don't care anymore. And I was just like, this guy's so good. This guy's so good. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at on El Canus. Morgan Rogers is one I also wanted to touch on, which I forgot about. Because I've actually heard that we have been interested in Morgan Rogers. They need to sell. He profiles very well in terms of that Gibbs White S. What are your thoughts on Rogers?
I love Morgan Rogers. Unbelievable player. He's had the ascendancy this past year to kind of the level that he's at has been a joy to watch. I saw him in the championship and I thought that he was above that level, but I didn't think he was this type of player. I know he's a City product. I know that he has always been on his way to the Premier League at this level. I knew that he had that within him to get there. I didn't expect him to do this so quickly. I think Villa have platformed him brilliantly. I think that he causes chaos, right? He's an unbelievable carrier and dribbler. I think that a lot of people knock his final bar and his passing, but I think that it's not as bad as some people make it out to be. I would love him. I just think he's a little unattainable for us just with the price tag that Villa are going to quote us at.
I've heard 80 million, which for me seems reasonable for a player of his level. But for what you said as well, I think, I always saw him as like a creative 10. I didn't know much about him. when he
Hmm.
joined the league again, when he joined Villa, I saw him for the first time. I was like, this guy's massive. Like he's so, I don't know if he was always that built, but he was. Yeah, he's massive. And I think I think you're right. I don't think his final third passing is amazing, but I think the amount of chaos and like his ability to carry and bulldoze his way through will attract players towards him. And is quite game breaking in similar ways to how
Hmm.
Kudus carries the ball in central areas. It's like it's almost a cheat code esque type of thing where he can carry it so well. He's so strong, like a sort of Dembele, but in more advanced areas and more kind of forward first thinking. But yeah, I think he'd be another great one. Again, I don't see it happening. So, but I mean, I'd be so happy with that.
Yeah, I'd be over the moon
Um,
with him. I think that Elliott is an interesting one to bring up because he feels like the ultimate Tottenham alternative. He feels like one of those players that you go into a window knowing that we're targeting a certain position and we'd fall back on as a young kind of promising prospect that we want to develop. And right now he'll play, but when our first team players come back, he'll probably be better suited for certain game states, certain games. And I'm in the same boat as you. I think that his passing can be really, really pinpoint. He can get some really nice curve on some of his passes from deeper areas. He's great at knowing where a player is before he gets the ball. His scan is good. I think, like you said, once he gets into the final third, that's where he is really a gem. Um, his ball striking, his ability to kind of find that pass between three players on that right side is really, really strong.
and
And
that half space cross he's
oh,
got to a T. Like,
unbelievable. Yeah.
but yeah,
I'm a little hesitant. I know a couple weeks ago I said that we would be helping Liverpool fund their best window ever by buying him, which would be true. But
fuck it, do it now though.
yeah, fuck it, right?
No,
I I still have
I'm
some
not,
reserv.
I'm not even on Harvey Elliott, sorry,
Yeah,
but Liverpool get as good as Liverpool can because
yeah.
I
I'm
cannot have Arsenal winning the league. So
hell no, hell no. Get Isak, fuck it, free Isak. Even though I'm kind of messed up with that situation. It's a
um,
mess.
yeah, I think you're right. I think it does scream Tottenham, and I know that some people are probably frustrated because I always try and see the positives in what we do because I find it draining being if I'm negative about Spurs, it ruins my whole day, my whole week, and I can't do that. And I'm also so used to being disappointed that when I am disappointed, I kind of try and just bounce off it. Um, and so that's why, like Harvey Elliott, I don't think it's the perfect signing. But is there things to like? Yes, 100%. Would he improve us at the moment? 100%, yes. But is there better players out there for us? Yes, also. But it's like if he did sign, yeah, I'm not complaining because we're now a better team. Do you know what I mean? But
Right.
yeah, I think it's a difficult one.
I
We'll
try
see.
I try to expect to be disappointed. When most deals the wheels start turning on most deals, I expect to be disappointed. I am just like anyone else. I'm very easily manipulated by this club, by some of the news that comes out of this club. I'm the first one to raise my hand when I say that I get a little reactionary. I can get into the doomerism gimmick. I actually really like the doomerism gimmick. It's fun. Um, but I try to always play it off as a joke because it is. I genuinely, I'm the same as you. In my in my real life with my friends, a lot of the times I am the guy that tries to be optimistic, that spins things in an optimistic light because I just can't do the doomerism thing all the time.
I think
And
it's a coping mechanism for sure because it's like if you are to if you are to let yourself get down by it, which means that you've let yourself get really excited about it and you're disappointed. Whereas for me, I didn't even even though we seem to be close with Eze, I still couldn't really picture him playing for Spurs because I just don't let myself run away with that stuff anymore. Um,
I'm turning into that old head that really like I need to see them lift our shirt. Like
yeah.
I I don't even believe in Here We Goes anymore.
By the way,
And
he's in the mud, Fabrizio. This summer and probably last summer as well. He's all over the place, and it's like we don't need you tweeting every 4 minutes like Eze is advancing. Eze's Tottenham's still interested in Eze. Just tell us when it's done, or tell us when it's changed stage. Like he does my head, and I think he makes it worse because everyone's always like constantly checking their phone for updates, and that's why everyone's so angry because they've been fed this constant information. Yeah, it's frustrating, man. But
we could talk about the modern transfer window for a whole episode, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
gotten
the
so
worst
much
transfer window,
worse.
by the way. We've like this for me. This has been more frustrating than when we didn't sign a single player. I've found this transfer window so. I think partly it's because I've started obviously doing the videos on it, and so I am trying to keep up to date with stuff so I can get videos out. But it's so draining. Like it's so draining.
I saw you got some flack for making a video about a player that we had agreed a fee on. Even it's like you can't control what happens. You've got to be
No, and
proactive
and the
about your
people keep
videos.
saying don't make a video until the time that he's holding up the shirt, and I'm like, yeah, but by the way, I have a life. Like on the weekend, if he's signed, I don't want to then have to go home from being out with my friends to go and make a video. Like I want to prep it in advance. I have other stuff to do. So I try my best to be like not be wretched, but also I always say this is still just talk. Like this is just if they sign, this is what would happen. Anyway, let's just quickly. I'm gonna preview unless anything crazy goes wrong. Goes on in the transfer market tomorrow. My video on YouTube tomorrow will be a Man City preview. So I'm not gonna preview it tactically or anything on here. But one where you watching that game?
It's
Oh,
a se- it's
that's
a
a
seven.
crazy time.
It's a 7:30 my time.
So in
I
bed
always for 7:30 games. I always try to get up, but it really depends on what I do the night before.
yeah,
Uh,
hangover
I'm
from
probably
there
gonna be
anyway.
I'm probably gonna be out drinking with my friends. We might
Yeah,
grab some dinner, go
so
out. So
probably in bed.
I'm I may watch that in bed, uh, which usually like the start of the season I try to get out of the house, talk to my fellow Spurs fans at the bar, try to like talk about the season. I kind of want to talk about Eze and talk
Yeah.
about the transfer saga. So I may get up early and get out there, but
Well, and they're all
7:30.
open. The bars are just out open at 7:30.
Yeah, that's a fun thing about America is I was actually in the on the West Coast for the first Northland Derby last year, and
We
the
lost that,
game was
right?
at 4:30
Yeah.
their
Oh,
time,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
4:30 in the morning, and I was on vacation with my family, and we're all staying at an Airbnb, and I told my mom and dad, I was like, hey, tomorrow morning I'm ordering an Uber at 3:30, and I'm going to
Yeah.
this bar down in downtown Seattle because I had looked up online. They've got supporter clubs everywhere, and the
They're
supporter
quite a
club in
big one, I think, in Seattle, aren't
oh, it's
they?
massive.
Seattle
Yeah,
Spurs. Yeah.
there's two bars. Both bars I heard. The one I was at was packed, but the one on the other side of town was packed too. I saw a picture of it. Um, yeah, 4:30 in the morning. They're open. People are drinking. I think that Northland Derby had like 6 pints by like
So
6 a.m.
I'm
It,
trying to picture this because so what do you do once the game's over? You can't just go home. Like what do you do?
we we just kind of we talk about the game for like an hour and a half at the bar drinking. Usually, what I do is my friends I beg my friends who aren't Spurs fans to come watch it with me,
Yeah.
so that I have something to do after, and
Right.
like
But
we
then
can
you
continue.
just end up drinking all day because obviously
Not
most
always.
like when I go to football often, not always, but especially on a Saturday, like you'll start drinking when you before the game. If you
Right.
win, you'll probably go back to the pub after the game. And so let's say your kickoff, for example, kickoff was at 3 on the weekend.
Yeah.
You're in the pub again by 5, and then you're probably just drinking through until the night, and you might go out, and then so that's a lot of drinking. But if you're watching at 5 a.m., then that's double.
Well, so what I usually do is I drink during the game. I usually take a break. I'll eat breakfast,
Yeah,
kind of piece my thoughts together for Twitter or whatever I'm doing, relax a little bit, and then usually my friends get after it for like the 2 or 3 o'clock games that are in La Liga or the
okay.
later games. So
Yeah,
we'll meet up and we'll hang out to watch as much of football as possible that
yeah,
day.
yeah,
But yeah, depends on if I have plans. If I have plans, I don't really drink during the game if it's 7:30.
yeah.
But if I have nothing going on,
Then you might as well.
aka Saturday,
Yeah, this Saturday. Yeah,
yeah, I'll probably be drinking most of the
because
day.
like this is like for me, it's like holiday where like you're always drinking on holiday anyway. But
Eh,
if you're going out in the evening, you might drink from like 12 till 5 and then have a break, maybe have a little nap. Then
Right.
you're back up and you rise up again. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's
Okay.
even better in America with the NFL and college football. Where I live, our college football team's pretty good.
Yeah.
So usually what happens at the game's at 8 or 9 or 10, I get to watch that game
Go to
pre-game, the
yeah, yeah,
college
yeah, yeah,
football
yeah,
game, and then I go to that game
because
at our stadium.
that's more you're not technically caring about the result. You're just there for the
Yeah,
vibe.
yeah. I'm just there to drink more and to hang out with my friends. I've come to like Syracuse football a little bit better recently, but yeah, that the fall is a really fun time. Um,
Um,
I'm
I completely forgot, but we had some Twitter questions to answer.
oh yeah,
So I'm just gonna do two quick ones. I'll make them quick. Let's see what we've got. I'm just gonna choose probably one serious one and one non-serious one.
love it.
Oh, they're all very serious because we've obviously just.
Everyone
Right, let
was
me
everyone was so
I tweeted before the day before all this fell apart. There was some more funny questions, so let's try find those. All right, from our good friend Ben Bowman. What do you reckon Thomas Frank eats for breakfast? He said he strikes him as a granola man.
I think that's a good shout, to be honest. I'm a granola man. So
Are you?
I hope my manager is also a granola man. I'm gonna take a shot in the dark. I think it's a spinach omelet with some toast and tea. Simple.
They have the advantage of having chefs.
I know, right? They can eat
Yeah,
whatever they
so
want and order it custom. What was Sonny's like omelet a go-to choice? He ate it
Oh
every
yeah,
morning. It was like
yeah, I
spinach
can't,
and cheese and ham, something like
yeah.
that.
No, something kind of weird in there. I can't remember. Yeah. Okay. The let's do one. I'm actually not even going to talk about the current Spurs. Let's talk about. We've got this one from Gary Hunter. You can get one Tottenham player from the 2000 to 2009 era and one player from the 2010 to the 2019 era to add to this team in their prime. Who are you picking other than Harry Kane? No Harry Kane.
I think there's some pretty obvious choices,
Yeah.
but I want to go with my favorite players, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Let me take. Actually, no, I can't even take that. Oh,
I'll
shit.
do I'll do 2009. I want
Yeah, you
Burba's
do
off.
that.
I
I'll do
want
the next.
Burba.
Okay.
Give me
Yeah.
Burba.
Yeah. Fairs.
Just a little bit of technical elegance, a little bit of je ne sais quoi
Yeah.
about him.
He was my first ever favorite player. Um.
He was after I fell in love with Spurs, so I had to go back and watch all of them. And oh my God, it was like discovering like gold.
Wow.
I couldn't really explain to
He
my friends who didn't weren't really into football at the time how enjoyable he was to watch.
he used to do this thing with his sleeves where like he would cut a hole in the. If you're obviously not watching on YouTube, he would cut a hole in his sleeve and wear them like that. And I used to cut holes in my school
Really?
sweatshirt and tuck my fingers in when I was like what 9 years old.
It was a proper
Um,
influence right there.
yeah, I know. Okay, and then I'm gonna go. I think this one's pretty obvious to be honest. One player from 10 to well, to be fair, it could be two. I think. Um, honorable mention Gareth Bale, obviously.
Easily.
Um, but for me, Luka Modric, I think in this
Ooh,
team would be he would save this team crazily. Like prime Modric in that midfield, would be incredible.
the deep lying
Um,
playmaker that we
ah,
need.
he was also like he never got his flowers until he left.
Oh,
Like I think people didn't realize how good he was unless they were like proper understanders of the game. But I remember people saying it was too weak, and he's like probably
my
top five of all time
my
midfielders.
favorite Redknapp clip is him talking about how everyone was questioning why he started him in the Northland Derby, why he started him in midfield, and he's like,
Oh, yeah,
just watch,
yeah,
just
yeah,
watch
yeah,
him.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, that's like
Those
my favorite
Redknapp
thing ever.
love those stories, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, we're pushing for time, so
Yes,
I'm
we are.
gonna end with one thing that you would recommend people go and check out.
Huh.
Have you not got one? I'll start.
I don't. Do you want to go? You want to go first?
Okay, I'm gonna give two, and it's music this week.
Okay.
I'm gonna give two different rappers. One is I know I'm late to the party, but West Side Gun. I've only really just started listening to West Side Gun. I can't remember where he's from, but I've had his songs on repeat. He is unreal. And this is a bit of a biased one, a UK rapper who's from Hackney, which is where I'm from, who's just released an album called Asco, and I've been having that on repeat as well. So go check those two out. What's his name? West Side Gun, just every song is just unreal. And then Asco's got a new album, so go and check that. Very like UK laid back rap. So
Love
if you're
that.
into that kind of thing, yeah, check it out. What are you gonna put forward?
I just saw them in July. They're pretty popular, and I'll stick with music. They're pretty popular in America. I'm not sure if they're popular overseas and in Europe, but one of my favorite bands right now. I love rap, hip hop. I'm kind of a lover of all music besides country.
Yeah,
It's pretty rare in America. So all my
yeah.
friends love country, so if they're listening, they
It's
know
not big.
this.
It's not big in England, I don't think. So it's
Yeah,
yeah,
they hate me for it, but I'm not a huge fan of country. So I'll listen to basically anything. But what I'm really into right now is like alt rock folk. So if you like that kind of like the Shins, Foster the People vibe, I really recommend Rainbow Kitten Surprise. They're one of my favorite bands. They've got banger after banger.
are they American?
Um, they are American. Yeah,
Yeah,
they are American. I just saw them live for my birthday at the end of July.
in New York.
Unbelievable live. They sounded better. I know that's a cliche, but they sounded better
Yeah.
live. The lead singer has a disgustingly good voice, just
Okay.
so good. Um, but yeah, that's what I would recommend. That's my other recommendation
There you
after
go.
Princess Mononoke last week.
You've got two completely different genres there, so whatever floats your boat, go and check them out.
Exactly.
Gus, thank you so much for coming on again. It's been actually very helpful. I needed to get off my phone and speak to someone in real life. I would advise everyone who's listening to do that. Speak to your Spurs fan mates, speak to your Spurs fan family, share the pain together. Um,
Yeah, give
that
them
is
a call too. Give them a
way
call
more
too.
helpful than replying to people on Twitter, I promise you. Not that I'm good at staying off Twitter, I think I struggle as well. But as soon as you put your phone down for 10 minutes, I promise you, you're always going to feel better. There's a whole world out there. Go and enjoy it. And we will be fine. Like we will be fine. We've just won a European trophy. Don't forget that. We're going to sign players, whether or not they're as a level, we'll see. But we will improve. The squad will be better by deadline day than it is now as a standby. And if it's not, then I'll go full Levy out. If we don't sign anyone
Then we
from now
riot. We
until,
just genuinely
if
riot.
we don't sign anyone from now until the window closes, I promise you, I'll change my account to full Levy out
Purple
again.
and gold, baby. Lakers
Yeah,
Nation.
100%. But yeah, thank you all for listening, and watch out for my video tomorrow. It will either be a Man City preview or a sort of transfer target video, depending on what we see. But yeah, guys, thank you, and come on, you Spurs.
Thanks for having me. Come on, you Spurs.